Well, I'm pretty glad my studio isn't working out because this is the perfect backdrop. And maybe I'll just do it on my cell phone because I can't seem to figure out, despite me being half Asian, these cameras, and I can't get it to download or upload to my computer. Technology, it's hard. So I'm just doing the cell phone, if that's okay with you guys. So September 10th, I got lower back surgery, and I'm just here to give you my best advice from life experience of making a really big mistake. So I go in because I had a couple of emergency room visits where I'm in pain. Like I can't stand the pain, this sciatic pain in my leg. And so I'm thinking maybe I got to get a CAT scan or MRI to determine this gross injury I have in my hip bone or something. That's what it felt like. Now, that ultimately was caused by, I thought, me throwing around a 55-pound kettlebell for 2 hours a day because of all this court crap going on. It was the best way I knew how to burn off energy and not really just go crazy. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I pulled something, but I didn't feel like I physically and actually pulled something in the moment. And so I just thought, this is weird. I need to get checked out. And then the ER doc tells me there's nothing wrong with your hip. You don't have a pulled leg muscle. You have lower back issues. So I had L5-S1, L3, L4 were all jacked up, but L5-S1 specifically was affecting the sciatic pain and numbness in my left toes, and then also groin pain, like right testicular pain. And if you're dealing with issues like I dealt with shoulder issues and arm issues for like a decade, thinking it was like a pulled shoulder or something, and it ended up being C5 through 7, C5, C6, and C7. Once I got that worked on, they cut me here and went in completely like normal. No issues in my back. I'm like, oh, I'm normal. So I didn't think about it for my lower lumbar because I've never had lower back issues until they told me you got lower back issues. So trusting the doc, I went into a neurosurgeon. He's like, yeah, that's easy. I could do that. So I schedule surgery. September 10th rolls around, I get surgery, and I wake up in excruciating pain. Long story short, 13 days into like just a horrible time. And it's weird because I watch YouTube videos of these guys getting this surgery and they wake up the same day and they're like, it's a miracle, I feel better. I didn't feel better. I woke up and felt like a pile of dog shit. And so I talked to my doc, complain again and again and again, and finally on my own accord, I get an MRI. And via the MRI, there's like a mass sitting on my nerve. And I go into the clinic. This is after the clinic says, hey, yeah, we could work you in like next week. And I'm like, I'm offended that you're telling me that you're going to work me in last week. Something's wrong. Like something is wrong. And then she's like, I'll see what I could do. I called back and said, look, like this is not right. Something's wrong. And if you don't help me, I'll help myself by going somewhere else. And immediately when I said that, she said, just come in, which is the right answer. She said, come in. And so I go in. I go in and they look at my MRI that I got in a couple days prior. I obviously can't read an MRI. I don't even have the software to read an MRI. Neither do you, which is probably part of the problem. There's no way to kind of share that unless you get the CD, and I couldn't get the CD on the weekends. They're still using CDs. It's weird. Anyways, I go in and the doc reads the MRI and then reads my body language of me being in excruciating pain and says, I'm concerned. And says, when's the last time you ate? And I said, I didn't eat today at all because I feel like crap. I don't want to eat anything. He says, we got to go in and do surgery. So I get surgery done. I think I said a long story short like a few minutes ago. I'm sorry. So I get emergency surgery done to what I later found out remove a blood clot full of bone fragments. Bone clot full of bone fragments. And you should probably ask yourself, like, how do you get bone fragments? I didn't do that. That's not something I did. You get bone fragments because the neurosurgeon left fragments of bone behind. Now, I'm still not mad. It's like, shit happens. Like, just life happens. I know that for a fact. And you just kind of get over it. You just do the best you can. But even after that surgery, I still felt like crap. And then I go and get assessed again and find out after I went to the ER here in town with 178 over 121 blood pressure reading that I potentially have a spinal fluid leak or spinal leak. And if you're not familiar with that, it's like when the dura, that material that holds your spinal fluid in, gets compromised in some way and it leaks. According to people on Instagram, it's like it happens. And again, I get it, but it's like there's a lot of stuff happening. So anyways, you feel nauseous, you got excruciating headaches, you got high blood pressure or hypertension, and you just feel like dog shit. So here I am, and I'm 2 or 3 days in feeling kind of normal. I still have a 6-inch scar on my back and had serious surgery, but I don't feel like ill. I feel kind of normal. The protocol for spinal fluid leak, and I'm not even saying that right, but the fix for that is called a blood patch, where they go in, do the surgery, and they pump your blood into the area or something like that. So I don't need that, I don't think. The other what is that dude driving? The other fix is hydration, rest, and supposedly caffeine, which isn't hard for me because I could drink a gallon of Black Rifle coffee every morning. So I get on that train. Hard to stay rested and hydrated when you're drinking a gallon of caffeine, but supposedly the caffeine helps, and it has helped. And again, 2 or 3 days into it, I'm feeling a little bit better. I say this, and I'm not trying to complain, but when it rains, it pours, and 2024 is a pile of crap. Notice the theme here, dog shit, like all the shit in the yard. If you notice, I'm in Heber City. I'm back in my old house, and I'm glad because I need to be near the mountains, and for sure need to be the hell out of Provo, Utah. What's awesome is after these Provo cops screwed me, and they screwed Greg Lappin, and all this crap was dismissed, I had a little pull-behind trailer that was parked literally on the road in the designated parking spots that you have on the road because you don't have any room on a driveway, at least on my rental. You can't park anything there because it would roll down the hill. I know that personally because my vehicle rolled down the hill and smashed into another vehicle that I owned. And I had one of those RV pull-behind tents parked on the side of the road. Got 2 tickets from Provo. And I live in the middle of nowhere, at least in that suburb, that neighborhood that I rented near the mountain. And somehow, some way, Provo PD was writing me tickets up there in the middle of nowhere, not impacting and affecting anybody. Maybe HOA, which I don't think there's an HOA up there because I got chickens in my backyard, but I don't know. Provo PD likes poking the bear. And they're going to get theirs. Not a threat, just a promise that I will fulfill my promise to those officers that were definitely, at a minimum, unethical. At a minimum, unethical. They definitely will get a suit from me. So yeah, what a year. I can't complain when you compare what's going on in the country, really in the world, but I care about the country more than the world. Helene, this hurricane, where specifically in Western North Carolina, in the Appalachians, where I grew up, visiting Chimney Rock and Dolly World and all these places in rural North Carolina, Wheels Through Time, if you've ever been there, you need to go, in Maggie Valley. All these places I grew up from, where I lived in Hope Mills and Lillington, North Carolina, which is why I got a slight twang in my voice. But I love that part of North Carolina and would never think it would be impacted and affected by natural disasters. Like the biggest natural disaster there is rednecks in the backcountry getting rolled over by dudes drag racing in the middle of nowhere. You don't expect a natural catastrophe like a hurricane impacting that area. what happened was a tropical depression was hanging over that area, and then Hurricane Helene comes in with 14 plus hours of rain. That rain rolls down the mountains, rises the river 30 inches, and then you got a recipe for disaster. Now, the fact this is being politicized, not surprising because everything is politicized, but it really pisses me off that Kamala Harris is politicizing this with Hurricane Milton and her absence in Hurricane Helene. She was on that podcast, Talk Daddy or More Daddy or Go Daddy or something Daddy, where this chick talks about sex and all this crap on our podcast. That was more important, and leave it in the comments. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you're like me, and you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, she's on this stupid podcast while there are victims of Hurricane Helene still being rescued. Now, look, I don't expect the federal government, neither should you, to do anything here. But when you're virtue signaling that you're doing something about it, then the expectation is your ass better be doing something about it. But you're not. You're not. You're just virtue signaling about it, which is why she was on TV and doing interviews with journalists talking about how she was offended that Governor DeSantis didn't take the call of the VP when it came to a catastrophe, and had the audacity to say out loud that she was offended and it wasn't about her, it's about the people of Florida. Really? Was it about the people of Lahaina or the people of Afghanistan or the American citizens we left behind? Was it about any of those people or the people that have been affected and impacted by all the illegal immigrants coming across the border? No, it's never been about the American people. So why are you making shit up? And she's definitely making shit up. I like this organic feel on the because I know I can't edit this, so I'm just telling you how I really feel. I do have an underground episode that I do for my Patreon members, which is going to be released right upon the release of this on YouTube, which is today, probably like 30 minutes after this is finished. But I mean, she's blowing smoke up people's asses, and she's offended that Governor DeSantis didn't take a call. So Governor DeSantis gets on the horn, and he goes, hey, well, it's funny because she's nearly been the vice president of the United States for 4 years. I talked to the president, and the VP has never called me for any disaster because we go through disasters every single year. It's called hurricane season. They're called the Miami Hurricanes for a reason. So Governor DeSantis has his shit squared away, and stop messing with him, but you want to politicize it. So Hurricane Helene, the corporate media comes out and they say there's mis and disinformation coming out about the government's response, the federal government's response. And again, I'm on the bandwagon. You can read about it in my book, Prepared, a Manual for Surviving Worst Case Scenarios. The two elements that screw us the most is arrogance and ego in disasters. One of the things I realized in kind of tracking all these disasters, writing about it in the book, is that most of the time when people are rescued, they're rescued because they're saving themselves, or their fellow citizen is saving them because there's not enough time. If something happened, if I cut myself on a fence in my backyard and I was bleeding out from arterial bleed, by the time I got on the phone to call, I could potentially be dead. So we say it, we beat the dead horse in preparedness. You are your own first response. And for sure, nobody's coming to save your ass, especially when it comes to catastrophes or disasters that are so epic in scale. So the government wasn't going to bail you out in the first place, but there is an expectation, especially because taxpayers pay for all the federal funding for these organizations like FEMA, that they're going to be there within a reasonable amount of time to help the citizens of this country. Were they there in Lahaina? Held to the no. There's people that were victims of Lahaina still living in hotels, being micromanaged and ostracized. The federal government came out and said we're going to pay victims $750. At the same time, Kamala Harris tweeted she was going to give $150 million to the victims of the humanitarian crisis caused by Israel in Lebanon. I don't know about you, but we're not talking about Lebanon, North Carolina, or Lebanon County. We're talking about the people of North Carolina, American citizens. And the people in Lebanon, seemingly, when you look at the scale and hierarchy of things that you're addressing, are not as important as the people of the United States of America. But that's lost on us. That's been entirely lost on us. So, what is happening right now? Well, what's happening right now is people are getting it done. I mean, Glenn Beck walked around and said, hey, where are the FEMA representatives? Nowhere to be found. The one they did find was like, that's not our job. We're off the beaten path, and I don't know what to tell you. Tim Kennedy told me personally, because he was on the ground helping people out, that there was nobody in charge. The only people who were getting it done were private citizens mostly, and obviously local and state emergency responders who were definitely getting it done. However, because of this ego and arrogance that I talk about in Prepared, there were incidents like in one particular county where a private citizen was flying around in this helicopter. His R-44 helicopter that he's trained, licensed, licensed to fly a helicopter. You don't have to have a license to vote in this country in 14 states, but you need a license to fly a helicopter. So definitely trained and qualified, was flying around the mountains in the area that he's normally flying around in, and spots two people a week later that are stuck on a piece of terrain where nobody can get access to them, that you could only see with a helicopter, except the government's not utilizing helicopters because, I don't know, UH-60, MH-60 is probably, a Chinook is probably not the right helicopter and confined areas in these tight valleys. You probably need little birds. I don't think Task Force 160th has enough little birds to loan to victims of Helene. So this dude with the R-44 picks up the wife, right thing to do, ladies first, drops off his son to stay with the husband, flies back to a headquarters location where they have survival task force operating and planning and coordinating. The fire chief, is one of the guys in charge, goes up to this guy and he says, hey, thanks for rescuing this lady, but if you go back to rescue the husband, I'm going to put you in jail. Well, I don't know how a fire chief would say that, but maybe he's in charge of this task force and has the law enforcement officers there, but threatens him with putting him in jail. Again, arrogant and very egotistical. They interview not him, but his boss, which is the city manager, who says, yeah, but that's just what you're supposed to do because you need a command and you need coordination, and he should have did friendly coordination and did that, and he was in violation. We're dealing with a catastrophe. What do you not understand about a natural disaster? What should have honed you in was the word catastrophe or the word disaster. And so let's be smart about those skill sets. Hey, we don't have that skill set now. You're actually an asset. You fly a helicopter. You didn't just wake up this morning or sleep at a Holiday Inn Express and decide that you're going to fly helicopters. That's what you do because you're certified and qualified. So let's leverage the asset and then go get the husband. But no. That's not what happens because he threatens this dude with jail time. So he flies back, picks up his son, and tells the guy, I'm sorry, man, I can't rescue you. And the fire chief tells his guys, his own men, let's go rescue this person. So they throw a rope bridge across a raging river to pull this guy across, risking the lives of their guys, which they have been doing. There's no doubt these first responders are doing their jobs, and they're doing their jobs well. Kudos to them, like they're heroes. But leadership like that, because of arrogance and ego, it's like, what? Why would you not leverage this guy? The following day, I think it's ironic, the following day, this guy is part of an entire civilian task force of aviators who are now being utilized for supply drops for rescuing people because the government and the institutions that we depend on in our own backyard can't get it done. And that's the reality of it. That's the lesson in all this madness. You can't depend on the government, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't have an expectation that the government's going to cover your ass because they don't even have the capacity and the capability to do it. So right now, if there's a catastrophe in our backyard, there actually is. There's the Yellow Lake fire in my backyard that's burning at 20,000 acres right now. Kudos to the wildland firefighters and the local emergency responders that are getting it done. They've 20% contained this fire that potentially could burn this entire valley behind me, risking their lives. That's their job. But a natural catastrophe on an epic scale they don't have the ability nor the capacity to be able to handle something like that. And if they did, they're going to do it person by person, street block by street block. Right out the gate, during that hurricane that affected most of North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, right out the gate, most of the cell phone infrastructure was disrupted. There were people texting 911. There were people contacting the local radio stations to be able to communicate to first responders where their location was. So the lesson learned, have a robust and redundant communications plan. If you don't have a sat phone, if you don't have a Garmin InReach that has the ability to SOS, if you don't have a iPhone that with the new iOS update, I think it's software update 18, you have the ability to text with a clear view of the sky via satellite. And that is a huge asset because the power that goes down is likely going to shut down the infrastructure. If that doesn't go down, well, hell, the entire infrastructure could actually physically be taken off the foundation and be taken down. And then how are you going to communicate? Well, if you don't have power to power the Starlink, to communicate on the specific device that you have to relay to that, then you don't have any communications. And that's super important, especially when relaying, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm washed downstream. I need emergency services. Or I need somebody with some sense and some capability to come rescue my ass. And that could be the people in your own backyard. Look, it's why I started American Contingency. It's why I'm so passionate about that. AmericanContingency.com. Mike Glover is not going to come rescue you in a Little Bird. Andy Stumpf might, but Mike Glover is not. And it's because I'm going to be taking care of my own family. But if you have a forum for discussion and networking called American Contingency, then you can start building those relationships now. So check it out for sure. And if not, if you're not going to use my infrastructure, my resources that me and Tom from American Contingency developed with the help of a lot of experts, then get your ass up and walk next door and find out who your neighbor is. My neighbor Jerry over there, who's in his 80s, still kicking it, putting his horse out to pasture, who's just tearing up this grass for real, is a good dude. When shit hits the fan, I can't really depend on Jerry to do a lot, but he has skill sets. He knows I'll pick up his slack. I have a rendezvous plan here. Hell, I just networked with a guy who, you can see it right here. It's Hillside Haulers. In fact, let me just this selfish plug. Hillside Haulers, the dude lives right over here in this house, over in this, I can't even do that. Lives over in that direction. And I said, hey man, if some shit goes down, you come over here, we'll rendezvous. Provo HQ, we could rendezvous there. If you guys want to rent some trash, here you go. It might be backwards. Hopefully it's not backwards. But the bottom line is you got to know your neighbors. And a lot of people aren't interested in knowing their neighbors. Look, you're speaking to somebody who really doesn't like people. It's why I do like YouTube, because I don't like being around a lot of people. I mean, if you there's not really anybody that I could see here, and I like that. And I'm building a fortress around me. I'm like, I might as well be a mayor in a remote Afghan fire base, because I'm treating myself like this, because I'm like, I don't want to talk to nobody. But you got a network, so use the resources. Start building those relationships, because when shit hits the fan, it's easier for you to get up on that comms device that you already pre-coordinated with and go over those rehearsals and those plans that you talked about over a beer, over dinner, over breaking bread, and activating that plan versus, hey man, I don't know who you are, you don't know me, let's figure this out. I mean, sometimes you got to do the best you can, but preferably do the rehearsal and do the plan. Hey, I'm off to the underground because I got to do the underground for my Patreon members. If you're interested, it's patreon.com/Mike Glover. I do want to say thank you so much, because I did get some news that were hundreds of thousands of copies of Prepared, a manual for surviving worst case scenarios. I'm super stoked about that, because I wrote that book for you guys. I wanted to have some kind of impact in getting you a baseline of principles and understanding of how to live this prepared life. And so that book's available. I'll link it down below. And also, just for you guys, I talked about it in some of my content on the underground, but this idea of getting a good night's rest. Like, it's so important. I haven't really slept in 4 months. One of the reasons I have slept is because of my health and wellness company, Wolf 21. I'm not sponsored, so you won't be seeing an inundation of companies, except companies that I directly work with or directly am involved in. So Wolf 21 is my company. It's powered by Slumber. I'm very grateful for that. And you guys, if you're interested in getting a good night's rest and need the help like I did with CBD and CBN, especially in combination, try it out. It's link down below, and I'll give you guys a discount code of PRIME25 for 25% off. Appreciate you guys. I'll leave you guys with this beautiful view. Here's some behind the scenes bonus footage here. You're gonna see the most beautiful view ever. Oh, just last but not least, it's so much easier to do content on a damn cell phone. Like, having this complex camera setup with studio lights, I don't like it. If you guys like it better like this, just let me know. I don't like editing stuff anyways. I like just doing it raw. I know what you're thinking, but check out this beautiful view. It's getting a little old, but she's still a beautiful girl. Leave it, mama. Leave it, good girl. You gotta warm up those hips. Look at that face. Lastly, I'm doing a whole bunch of preparedness content on this place and all the stuff, like the shipping container I just moved in here, the shop that I'm building, the new greenhouse that I'm putting in, the generator and all the setup of it, and living a truly prep life here and kind of starting from scratch, which I'm excited about. But yeah, guys, I feel like you're here with me. Subscribe, all that good stuff. Till next time. Peace out, guys.